Welcome to this demonstration. So in this demonstration, I shall be showing how to create VPC flow logs that send logs data into Amazon CloudWatch. So we have a couple of steps to do that. We are now in the VPC console, and when we get here, we're going to see when we click on the VPC that has been created. This is the default VPC for this region. We go down to the bottom here. We see details, siders, flow logs, and tags. So we'll go to flow logs. We can see that this is where we create the flow logs, and we can create a flow log from here. But in creating the flow log, there are a couple of things that we need. Okay, so apart from the name of the flow log, say flow log 1, okay, there are other information that are also important that are not here. So you can see the destination log group and the IAM role. The destination log group determines where the logs will be sent to. So there are two options. You have CloudWatch or you have Amazon S3. We want to send it to CloudWatch, so we need to configure a CloudWatch log group, and then the IAM rule, which is what gives permission to VPC to write the log data into CloudWatch logs and CloudWatch streams. So for us to be able to do that, we need to create the right IAM rule for that, and we'll also need to create the proper log group that we're going to attach the VPC flow logs to. Now, to make that possible, the first thing we need to do is to try and there are other important information here, such as the filter, the maximum aggregate, but we'll talk about them more when we come back here. So we need to go ahead and try and create the log group and the IAM role. So to create the log groups, we'll switch over into CloudWatch. So let's go to the CloudWatch console. So right over at the CloudWatch console, we go straight into log groups, and under log groups is where we're going to create our log group. So right here, we'll create a log group. Let's give it a name. Let's say, for example, default VPC flow log. Okay, we'll leave the expiry date and then the KMS key to be optional. We don't need to put anything there. So let's take note of this theme, default VPC flow log. We create that. Okay, now that the log group has been created successfully, the next thing we need to do is to create the IAM role that gives the VPC access to write the logs from the VPC into CloudWatch logs and CloudWatch trail. So to do that, we'll move over into the IAM console. Move over into IAM console. IAM is here because we visited IAM before. Under the IAM console, we go to roles. Now, most times you usually have a role, okay, and there's always a policy that is attached to a role. So during the process of creating a role, you can create a policy, but you can also create a policy first before you create a role. So let's go over to create a policy first, and then we'll create a role after that. So let's go to policies, because actually the policy that gives the role the permission that it needs and all the major configurations. Then we'll create a policy. Okay, I already have the JSON for that. I don't really need to use the visual editor. You can check the chapter in the book and you see section under where this configuration is done. We have the JSON for the policy that is needed. So I'm just going to quickly paste it there. So we don't really need to configure this. We just come to the JSON and we paste it because we already have it configured. So this policy simply gives you the option to create a log group, create a log stream, put the log events, which is the data itself, and describe the log streams to show the log stream. So this is the permission that the VPC will be given as access into CloudWatch. So we'll click on next. We can leave the tags to be optional. We click on next here, and then we have to give our policy a name. So let's say VPC flow logs policy. Okay, the description can be optional. So the name is actually compulsory, but the description is optional. So VPC flow logs policy, that's the name of our policy. And then we create policy. And that's done. So now we have created the policy. Let's create the rule. So let's quickly copy this because we'll be using this very soon. So let's go to roles. We click on roles. Click on create role. It's going to ask us what is the common use case. It's basically for EC2 purposes by default. We click on next. There are other purposes here, but let's go for EC2. Click on next. And then the next thing we do here is we are asked for the policy. So good enough, we've created the policy we need to attach. We just paste it here to search for it, and we click on this checkbox and we click on next. So like I said, let's go back a little bit. You can create the policy from here too, okay? But since we created it before, we can simply just search for it and we tick it to attach it to the role. Next is the tags, which is not very compulsory. And then next is the review. So here we need to write in the name of the role. So let's call it VPC flow log role. Okay, so this description is optional. It put this description by default because it was for EC2. I chose as the trusted entity. So you can see trusted entities here, EC2. So we'll create the role. Now we have successfully created the role. Our work is not finished here. Now, don't forget that VPC flow logs needs to connect to CloudWatch to write the data, not really an EC2 instance. So we need to give VPC flow logs that proper permission. And that is actually done from the trusted identities, okay? From trusted entity, not trusted identity, trusted entity of the configuration. So we're going straight into the role. And within the role, we're going to see what we call trusted relationships. And that trusted relationship, you're going to see trusted entities. And the only trusted entity here that has access to write logs is EC2, okay? But we need to give VPC flow logs the access, not just VPC, but VPC flow logs. So to do that, we're going to edit the trusted relationship. And if you also check the chapter in the book, you'll see the JSON and what we changed here. So let's quickly change that right now. So I'm going to add VPC flow logs here. This is JSON, so it needs to follow how JSON takes in arrays. So this has added VPC flow logs. So I need to confirm that by updating the trusted policy. And when I do that, you can now see that one of the identity providers that is trusted, a trusted entity, is now a VPC flow log, which means VPC flow logs can now write data into CloudWatch logs. Now that we've configured the permission, we've configured where the data needs to be written, let's jump back into VPC and create the flow logs. So services, under networking, go to VPC. Okay, we're back here where we came from. So we'll go to VPC flow logs and we click on create flow logs. So what do we give this flow log? We can call it default FL, whatever I want to call it. Any name doesn't really matter. What kind of traffic do we want to collect in terms of the logs? Is it accepted traffic, rejected traffic, or all? I personally usually take all because they will all be important for you to know where traffic is being dropped and where traffic is being accepted at all times. What's the maximum aggregation interval? So this means the time during which a flow of packet is captured and aggregated into a flow log record. So you can do 10 minutes, you can do 1 minute. 1 minute is very frequent. 10 minutes means it has a 10-minute interval. Now, where do we want to send logs to? Either CloudWatch or Amazon S3 bucket. For example, we want to send it into CloudWatch, so we can view it within the CloudWatch logs dashboard. So what log group are we choosing? We already created default VPC flow log, so we're going to select that. And then what is the role we created? VPC flow log role. Now this is the log we create. This is the IAM role we created for this. So we click on it, and right here is something pretty much interesting, which gives us access to the kind of information we can collect from VPC in terms of data surrounding the networking activity. So here you can see different things like the version of the network, the AWS account ID, the interface ID, which is the Elastic Network Interface ID, the source address, the destination address, the source port, destination port, and a whole lot of information here. Now, this is what AWS is configuring for you by default. But there's also the part of custom format where you can decide to choose from a list of other information and other data that will be relevant for you to monitor and track activities within your network. So you can actually configure this yourself by ticking on this, but we don't need all that. We just want to go with the default. I mean, default is fine by us, so we'll go with the default. Okay, and then the tag. Okay, it's already used the name we used as the tag. So when we're done validating all this information, we simply click on create flow log. It's going to take a couple of seconds for that to be available. So yeah, voila. So finally we have the flow log created, and what this will do is every single resource, okay, when I talk about resource, I'm talking about EC2 instances, EKS setup, anything that is using this particular default VPC that has a network interface, okay, this flow log will be able to capture network activity on it and write it into CloudWatch logs. Flow logs will capture every network activity on every network interface that is running within this VPC and send that data into CloudWatch logs. And it's going to take a couple of seconds, and we'll check out CloudWatch again, and we're going to check into that log groups and check the log stream and see the data it has written in a couple of minutes. Okay, so it's been a couple of minutes now. Let's navigate over into CloudWatch and see our logs that have been created. So we'll go to CloudWatch. Now in CloudWatch, we move over into log groups. And under log groups, we're going to find our log group that we created and configured. That is the default VPC flow log. And under default VPC flow log, we're going to see something new here. Yeah, so under the log stream, you can see one ENI. So ENI is an acronym for Elastic Network Interface, which means that we have one ENI under that VPC. So when we open that ENI, we're going to see a lot of information. Oh, that's some interesting information of traffic flow. So we can see accept, we can see the IP address. Now this data is based on the format we had configured in the CloudWatch custom, in the CloudWatch format. So we use the AWS default format. So you have the ENI, you have the source IP, you have destination IP, you have the port, which is all the parameters we configured right there. So that's how you create log groups and log streams using flow logs to collect the data and write to Amazon CloudWatch. You can go further by going back inside to create a stream, a metric for this and other information, graphical information that will help you analyze these logs and get deeper insights based on this information that has been collected. Thank you. In this demonstration, we'll be showing how to create and configure logging of queries on DNS queries on Route 53 into CloudWatch logs. So the first thing we need to do is we're supposed to create a hosted zone, but we'll not go through that process, and you can check the book to see how you can create a hosted zone. But here we have hosted zone already created, and the next thing we are going to do is to configure the login. So to do that, we're going to click on one of the hosted zones we have created, and inside of the hosted zone configuration page, we'll go to the top right corner and we see the button here that says configure query login. We click on that, and then we have to select the log group we want to send the logs into. But at this point in time, we've really not created any log groups for ourselves. So the first thing we should do is to create log groups in CloudWatch and then come back here to get this done. So let's go over to CloudWatch. So and look for CloudWatch. Okay, yeah, that's it here. So now we're in CloudWatch. Let's quickly create a hosted zone let's quickly create a CloudWatch log groups where the logs will be sent to from Route 53. So we go straight into log groups. I want to create a hosted zone. I want to create a log group, sorry. I want to create a log group and call it /AWS/Route 53/ let's say my hosted zone logs. Okay, we don't need any key. It should not expire, should not delete it, and we create it. So let's take note of the name, my hosted zone logs. So the log group is creating right now, and the log group has been created. So let's quickly switch back into Route 53 and create and finish the configuration of the login. So that's Route 53. So we go back to our hosted zone that we had before. Now under the hosted zone, I click on the zone, and then we go to configure query login again. And this time we should have our log group we just created right here. Okay, that's it, my hosted zone logs. So we'll click on that, and let's check this permission optional. Okay, and it's saying that if you delete one of the following policies and choose grant permission, Route 53 create a resource policy that grants permission to publish logs to any log group. You can also edit an existing resource policy. So we really don't, this is not very important for us because it's pretty much optional. So we'll click on create, and it has created the log groups for this. So we'll give it a couple of minutes to ensure that it's sending logs into CloudWatch, and then we'll check back again. Okay, so let's go to CloudWatch to see if any logs has been created. We waited for a couple of minutes just to be sure that the logs have been sent over to the log groups. So let's navigate to CloudWatch again. We go straight into logs, log groups, under logs, and then we go to the log group that we created, which is /AWS/Route 53/my hosted zone logs. We click on that, and then we're going to find log stream here, a log stream and a couple of log streams. So so we can see the test log stream here created by Route 53, just to be sure that it can write logs into CloudWatch logs. So he said Route 53 created a test log event, and we can also see a real life log. Okay, these are real logs now coming in gradually based on the requests that are being sent into that hosted zone. So that's how you configure logs for Route 53 login. Thank you.